Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. This Saturday night going down, Seattle, Washington. We've got 12 fights on the slate. Henry Cejudo headlining against Song Yadong, and then a rematch in our co-main event, Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez. Top fight in the middleweight division. Ready to get into these fights here with you. As always, like to be transparent, recap how we finished up last week. Was the first losing event for me this year. Just a small loss, minus 1.21 units there. I hit fight goes to decision, which is my biggest bet of the night, and caters the law. Thought it should have been minus 400, looked minus 400. Fight to start round 3. I love my middleweight overs. Very sketchy. Happy to cash that, though. Small poke on Cavalcanti, under 2.5 rounds, didn't hit. Aguilar Estevam didn't really have a chance of hitting either. But, man, goes to decision and Sadikov and Bomb theme. Super weird stoppage, translation issues potentially. I don't know. I thought the pace of that fight was leaning toward potentially going very far. So, first losing night, minus 1.21 units. Easy to kind of scratch off and jump into this week that I'm much more passionate about. How'd you finish up?
I ended up about plus 1.5 units. I was on Jared Cannonier for a unit at plus
Nice.
205. I took a shot on Calvin Kattar at plus 375. I don't know, man. I'd still probably make the bet. I know he didn't look like he even had a chance to win, but maybe if they replayed it back, he'd realize he'd have to do what he was attempting to do in the third round the entire fight to make anything happen. Eustace Law has kind of mastered the Floyd Mayweather style of MMA. It's crazy. I don't like it, but it's pretty good. I got to give it to him. My biggest bet of the night was Elijah Smith. The line got crazy low like a few hours before fight time. I got it for minus 105. Too many people on Vince Morales. We talked about it before this. He was bound to blow that one. And then fight ends by sub in Estevam versus Aguilar. Honestly, having trouble remembering that one.
A lot of grappling.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So a lot of grappling is what it is. It was plus 155. Still ended up positive. And like you said, moving on to this week, where I do feel a little bit better about some of these bets than last week.
For sure.
So starting off in the light heavyweight division, Modestas Bukauskas taking on Rafael Cerqueira. And, man, going into this, I expected Rafael to have some grappling upside, being a big man from Brazil, but I really didn't see that in tape study. He's primary striker. He stands pretty tall when he's striking, and he leaves a lot to be desired defensively. Modestas, he isn't a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but he is relatively solid. I think Modestas has a lot better footwork. I think he's a little bit faster. And even though the fight doesn't go, the distance line doesn't agree with me, I think that Modestas is about to win a clean decision here, 30-27. I'm not really sure how I want to attack it, but the over 1.5 is minus 135. And that probably is how I'll look to play this fight. I am picking Bukauskas, though. Although the price tag isn't really warranted, I think both these guys are going to be willing to pepper each other for at least a couple rounds.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this card in terms of betting as well. I was looking back to my bet MMA, and 9 of my 10 straight bets this year have been on underdogs, and I'm loving the underdogs this week. So hoping the steam continues. I'm betting the underdog here. I've got a half unit on Rafael Cerqueira at plus 240. Rafael Cerqueira is a guy that half of Twitter was lined up to play at pick'ems against Ibo Arslan, last fight, and he gets knocked out in round 1, which, I agree, shelled up, didn't look the best, kind of chalk it up to some UFC debuts in front of a live crowd. But, man, you get knocked out by Ibo Arslan in the first round. That's Ibo's win condition in every single one of his fights. And now he's a massive dog after being pick'em there. I just think there's a huge overreaction to this fight, and standing in front of him is a guy with a fraction of that power, someone he's not, doesn't have to be scared of, someone I think he is way more likely to go forward on. But Modestas has defensive issues, I think, as well, and keeping his chin up. He's already been a guy who's been cut from the UFC, massive knee injuries, and little to no finishing upside. So I don't hate your overplay whatsoever. I think that's a great way to look at this fight. But in terms of money line for me, clearly dog or pass, and I think there's a big overreaction by the market. Happy to take a small dog shot to start this night off. Nursultan Ruziboev, Eric Makonico, kind of a short notice fight thrown together here. Ruziboev's a pretty dangerous guy earlier. He's got a big right hand. He's an opportunistic submission fighter. As the fight goes on, not really a fan of his game. I think he slows down. I think he's there to be hit. I do like him better at 185 than I do 170. I think if Eric McConaughey is here after 4 or 5 minutes, maybe in round 2, I think he's a pretty decent live underdog. But I do think he's kind of live to get sparked early in the fight as well. So I think my final decision is going to be Nursultan inside the distance. But again, if he's still there, McConaughey's a tough dude, veteran, trains at a great gym, and I think he has potential wrestling upside if this fight starts going late. So give me Nursultan. Ian Eric has a live bet though, man.
Let's see. So yeah, this is a weird one. McConaughey coming down from 205, and like you said, Ruzaboyev going up a weight class. They're both kind of solid. Like, I at least like the pace that Moicano could bring in his last fight, but they're just not against good competition. Like, rarely do we see guys get signed off of Tough Enough. And, I do question his actual skill set, although he is coming from MMA Lab, so I do like where he's training out of. But for Ruzaboyev, I remember being in Louisville and seeing all of the Uzbekistani fans there. Uzbekistan, right?
Yeah.
Uzbekistani fans there. They're some of the most passionate fans I've ever seen in my life. And I think that this is the UFC's way of kind of getting him back on track. He does bring a lot of popularity from a place that's kind of untapped. And I think that this is kind of a stepping stone fight for him. I see a lot of defensive holes, and I can't say his name. McConaughey's, his defense. And I do think that we see a finish from Ruzaboyev, but I'm curious how his power translates into 185, because he hit Cedric Dumas with like some really clean shots, but they really weren't affecting him too much. And if he lands those same shots on McConaughey and looks a little bit more powerful, I think that he could get this done relatively quickly. It's another fight I'm kind of looking at the under for, but Ruzaboyev inside the distance is okay with me. Let's see, moving up the card to, Austin Vanderford taking on Nikolay Veretinikov at 170 pounds. Man, dude. Both guys, I'll put this out there to start it off. Both guys are pretty decent. Vanderford, in my opinion, he hasn't really won a fight in 4 years. He's 1-2 in his last 3, 2 of those coming by first round finish. Then he takes at 32 years old, decides to take 2 years off, make his comeback fight at his newfound weight class at 170 pounds. And his opponent's, 5'8", 42 years old. It's tough to take anything away from that fight. He did what he was supposed to, but it's really tough to take anything away from that fight. Veretinikov, he's had a couple of tough matchups in the organization so far. Danny Barlow and Michael Morales. He was able to steal a round off of both those guys, which I think speaks, for something. Outside of the UFC, he's looked pretty spotless in the last decade. Both guys, I think they're pretty violent in their fight style. Vanderford does sometimes lean on a wrestle fuck game plan. But, I'm not convinced that Vanderford won't slow down at this weight class. I am kind of curious what he looks like at 170 pounds now if he does choose to initiate these grappling exchanges. Let's see. And then Veretinikov, I think in his debut against Barlow, he was able to kind of get the jitters out of the way. Towards the end, he kind of realized that he was a little gun shy. The volume wasn't there. And I think that he knows that he has to improve on that in this fight. So the under 2.5 is at even money. Vanderford being the underdog, the odds makers don't see him winning. And he is coming off of 2 first-round knockout losses post 30 years old. So, my pick is Nikolay, but I also like the under as a side where I don't have to, pick anybody. The under is the spot here. I think we might have 3 quick fights, to be honest with you.
I feel a bit more confident on the Vanderford side, man. Nikolay showed me some things on the feet that I do like. I don't think Vanderford's going to give him that fight whatsoever. I think Vanderford, like he will in all of his fights, I think he goes to the wrestling. And what I've seen on the regional scene from Nikolay is him put on his back a couple times and doesn't seem to have a lot to offer there. So I like the Vanderford side. I think he leans on the grappling. I think the 170 hopefully forces him to get in good shape. he couldn't take a 170 fight on short notice. So I think he's in shape. I think he's been ready for this UFC opportunity since the whole Bellator PFL situation. They're letting him debut in Seattle, where he's a Washington training guy. Yeah, I like the Vanderford spot. I bet him at plus 120. Just got around to putting on Twitter, releasing it and tracking it. It's a pick 'em. I'm still happy with that because I do think he's the one who likely comes out here and looks the decent sized favorite with the grappling upside. So Austin Vanderford for me. Another guy that I think could come out here and have some wrestling upside, man. Ricky Simone versus Javid Bashrat at 135. I got a unit and a half on Ricky Simone at plus 240. I think the line is just a little bit crazy. I think Javid Bashrat is a guy who, you can kind of say it like Vanderford. Bashrat hasn't won a fight in like over 2 years, man. And even when he does win fights, it's by decision. It's on super slim margins. And I think if Ricky's able to get in the pocket, he's got the bigger power. He's got the ability to land takedowns. I think he'd be much stronger in the clinch. And, Mario Bautista, top player in the division, man. Song Yadong fighting in the main event and, went almost 5 rounds with him. And then the Vinicius Oliveira fight, dude, you just watch Vinicius Oliveira flying knee someone and put him on a highlight reel. It's like that's what's going through your mind when you're fighting this guy. And I just feel like Ricky was tentative in that fight. I really do. And he still shot 11 takedowns. I feel like if he goes in here, shoots 11 takedowns against Javid, he's going to find some. And all it takes is a couple takedowns, a couple minutes of cage time. And, Javid doesn't offer a whole lot of resistance. I just feel like he's all volume and Ricky can steal some minutes. He's another one of these guys who's trained in the Northwest region his whole life, fighting almost in his backyard here. So plus 240, love the line on Ricky Simone this week.
Yeah, I'm not going to add anything to that, honestly. I'm kind of looking to tail your bet. We've still got him at plus 210 or better. And yeah, I'm with you, man. When you take into consideration, I think the most important line of when you broke it down was how the margin of victories that Bashrat has been winning by. And Ricky Simone, he's at least going to make it close because he's willing to mix up his game plan. And yeah, I think that'll look good on the judges' scorecard. So yeah, I like Ricky. I'll probably end up tailing that for at least a unit. Yeah, nice. I am certainly playing this next fight.
Okay.
Yeah, dude, 185 pounds. We got Nick Klein taking on Mansour Abdul Malik. Huge odds for someone that has only had to rely on his athleticism and quick finishes up until this point. On top of that, I've also seen some pretty sketchy sequences during his scrambles that lead me to believe that he is extremely green, sort of like William Knight, where up until that point on the regional scene, he really hadn't seen much resistance. And then you start to see, oh, this dude's missing a ton. And I really do see a couple of those, like, just little hints of it from what we have seen from him up till this point. That being said, there's a very high likelihood he's going to flatline Klein out here in the opening minute. But I wouldn't be comfortable laying this price tag on John Jones versus anybody on the roster. I've said that before, but I really do mean it. Like, this is MMA, and once you get up above 90%, I think that it's the wrong call. Klein is at least serviceable. He's been in 5-round fights, gotten 5th-round finishes, multiple late finishes at that. And I think I'm willing to take a flyer on him at plus 700, man. I mean, this is low level for what it's worth. Abdul might have some high upside or high ceiling in the UFC, but he certainly hasn't proved it, in my opinion. I think I'll likely just play Klein straight, but I honestly think he subs Mansour if he can avoid getting sent to the shadow realm in the first 5 minutes. So, yeah, give me Nick Klein. I honestly, I encourage you to put a 0.25 sprinkle, dude. Like, no kidding. I just don't see how it's justified. Yes, he's getting these first-round finishes, but, man, I think, we've been doing this long enough. We've seen this play out, a handful of times.
It's not justified whatsoever. I agree with you there. And, dude, there's single-digit guys on the roster that'll fight for your dollar the way Nick Klein will either, man. He's Nick Blue Collar Klein, like dude's going to go out there and give it his all, even if it does end up in him getting knocked out in the first round. And it's plus 750. So
he's hype, man.
I know.
He's the type of fighter you want to put your money on.
I know. And I think I know Nick Klein is not going to go out there and try and stand with him. He knows what he's good at. I think he's going to force the pace. I think he's going to force the grappling. I'm very worried about the first 3 minutes of this fight and how it goes. But at plus 750, yeah.
Dude, I've made worse bets for sure, man.
1,000%. Yeah. Let's catch Nick Klein for the podcast.
I love that, dude. I love that.
Let's do it. Hey, I'm pretty confident in this next fight, though. I got Andre Fili big, 2.26 units. I got it at minus 113. I hate to see that it's come down against me, but I'm still happy to play and almost pick him against Andre Fili here against Melquizael Costa. I think this is the type of fight Andre Fili shines in, man. I think he's got every advantage in this fight. I really do. I think he's the way better striker here. I think he's way quicker to his punches, way more versatile with the strikes. I think in terms of wrestling, he's the way better top wrestler. While Costa is a guy who I think relies on the grappling more to win his fights, I think Andre is the better grappler of the two. I don't see Costa getting him down, and I think Fili's a way better guy on the feet. Sure, it's not the best seeing him go to split decisions with guys like Cub Swanson, but Cub Swanson is a vet on the feet, and you see guys like Akeem Dawodu with massive Muay Thai backgrounds come in and have close fights with Cub. He just does that to you sometimes, and I don't know, man. I feel super confident that Fili gets the job done. This is one I think he shines in, and my biggest bet of the night on Andre Fili here.
What do you think about cardio? You give Fili the edge in cardio?
I would say, I don't know if I could confidently say anybody has the advantage there. I don't think anybody's bad there, but I wouldn't say Costa's got a overwhelming advantage.
I like him coming off that round 3 victory over Nurdenbeke. And I do think that Andre Fili is kind of aging out. He was never a great UFC fighter. He was an exciting one, but he definitely never got over the hump. And I see a very similar outcome to Melky's career as well, if I'm being honest. But just where they are in their career, I would feel a little bit more comfortable taking Melky, even though I would agree with you that, the technical side of MMA is probably on the Andre Fili side. We just haven't seen him reliably get finishes. Yes, he got the win over Lucas Almeida in round 1, but before that, it had been 9 or 10 fights before he had ever gotten a finish. It's one of these ones where I think he is probably going to have early success, but if he doesn't get that finish, I think he could be in for a long night. And if anything, a close fight, probably how these odds play out, minus 110. I think it's a little bit of a coin flip. So for me, it's a layoff, but I do wish you the best on that one. I don't have as much confidence though. So for me, I think the over hits, and I don't know, dude. Yeah. Actually, don't have a pick for the fight. Maybe, toss up. I'm going for Fili, though, if you're on him for that big. Moving on to the light heavyweight division, Ion Cutelaba taking on Ibo Aslan. Aslan's one of these guys. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's on steroids. His physique and everything doesn't look very natural, and he had a little bit of gynecomastia last time he was out. Most of his fights get finished in round 1. He has been finished by Anton Turkalji on the regional scene. He did get that win back, which was, good for him, but really doesn't mean much in the UFC, getting the win over Anton. So here he's up against Ion Cutelaba. Also not great, man. The only thing that's still working for him is he has a ton of experience, and he's only 31 years old. I think that is going to play quite a big factor if this does go into the later rounds. But I think they're both live for a finish for what it's worth in the first round. And I've seen Ion Cutelaba quit a couple times. I don't really like that. So it's a layoff spot for me, but I think I'll go with the experience of Cutelaba here. Just if he can drag this out, I think that we'll see a much different fight.
Yeah, to me, I did bet Ion Cutelaba 1 unit at plus 150, but I think it's one of the most clear dog or pass fights that I've seen in a while, man. You've got to lay minus 180 on a guy who has pretty much no win condition outside of a round 1 knockout, because I think if this fight does extend, I don't think he finds the round 3 KO. I actually watched that Turkalji fight back yesterday. it's hard to say when you see it on paper when Aslan's getting the round 3 KO. But dude, the tides were starting to turn in that fight. It was starting to go just like his first fight, where he starts to slow down. And I think Turkalj was eventually going to find his way on top and submit this guy again. And I think Ion Cutelaba is way more likely to press that wrestling early in this fight to try to drain out the power, to try to avoid it. I just saw him go 15 minutes in his last fight, showing a bit more maturity. And, the guys who are finishing knocking Cutelaba out on the feet are really, really talented guys fighting for the belt next month, And so I just haven't seen anything but the ability to land a big overhand right from Ibo Aslan. And I feel like Cutelaba's got so much more to his game to offer. And so at plus 150, if this gets out of round 1, plus 150 will not be there anymore. So I like Cutelaba here in the prelim main event. Open up the main card is a fight I don't really have too much opinion on, honestly, man. It's like a 10-year age gap here. Julius Walker making his UFC debut, taking on Alonzo Minifield. Julius Walker seems like a pretty good athlete. I don't really like his chances at range here to avoid some of the big strikes of Alonzo Minifield. I think he should probably try to mix it up like he does on the regional scene, mix in some grappling. But Alonzo's not a bad grappler himself. Alonzo is making changes, going back home. He's been KO'd in his last couple fights. He's approaching 38 years old. So, if the time for Julius Walker to beat him, it's now. I don't know, man. I don't know if Julius Walker is going to get through him on Saturday. So I do like Alonzo Minifield, but hands are clean. Hands are off this fight. I'm not too passionate about either side.
We talked about before the podcast how Julius Walker picked his UFC basketball lineup. He is a pure athlete, and you can see it translate to the mat. His footwork is incredible. He has a little bit of gone in him, and I like his movement. I think that could offer Minifield some problems, but I do think that it's Minifield that's going to be pushing the grappling pace to try and slow down Walker once he realizes he's a little quicker, Mm-hmm. So I think Minifield, with the experience that he has, probably a cage pushing match, not letting Walker get that distance and find that timing, and just hope that his experience will kind of take over and just bank him some rounds. I actually think this one goes over. I haven't even looked at what that line is set at. Yeah, so fight goes to decision is plus 300, but the over 1.5 at minus 110, it being Julius Walker's debut and Alonzo Minifield coming off of a couple of knockouts. Man, I think this is an easy over, although, it's going to be tight butthole because it's light heavyweight. So it is what it is. I think I'm comfortable enough with making that call. So over 1.5 minus 110, that's probably what you'll find me. Moving down to the featherweight weight class, Jean Silva taking on Melsik Bagdasaryan. Man, dude, I would like for the UFC to give Silva, a little bit different look. Seems like he's only getting, either guys like Weston Wilson or strikers. And, now he's getting Melsik Bagdasaryan, who, truth be told, I think technically speaking, he's probably the best striker that he's faced up until this point. He's been doing pretty well so far in the UFC, but I think that if he is not willing to mix in the grappling and he is, complacent with staying on the feet against Melsik Bagdasaryan, I think that this fight is a lot closer than the odds play out. Melsik is clean on the feet. So if this turns into a kickboxing match, I think I got to take Melsik. I would be looking at this hitting the judges' scorecards, and I do think that Melsik plus 3.5 might be a little bit better play than trying to completely fade UFC's golden boy right now in Jean Silva. So Melsik plus 3.5 is probably how I'm looking.
Third time's the charm, dude. I've stood in front of him twice already with Jourdain, with Drew Dober. Give me plus 400, Melsik Bagdasaryan. I'm with you, dude. He's shown me. Look, guys have gone in there and out wrestled Charles Jourdain numerous times. Guys have gone out there and out wrestled Drew Dober numerous times. The path was there, and John Silva never decided to take it. I don't know if there's anything that shows me he's going to take it here against Melsik. Would I be shocked if the pace eventually got to Melsik, who's kind of shown sketchy cardio in the past? I don't think I would be too shocked, but for what I think John Silva's going to do and come in here and try to dog out a kickboxing fight against a guy that I agree with you is probably the most talented kickboxer he stood across from in the UFC. Yeah, dude, I like Milsic. Milsic has a lot of tools, the ability to hurt you to the body. So John Silva can be as durable as he wants to, but takes a good left body kick and the body shuts down. Yeah. So plus 400. Let's cash a plus 750 and a plus 400 this week. That'd be pretty sick. I'm
nice.
Still staying with the underdog, man. As we get to the featured bout of the evening, Rob Font versus Gene Matsumoto. I texted you earlier. How would you line Kyler Phillips versus Gene Matsumoto? Because I think people would line Kyler Phillips as the favorite here. And so when you see Rob Font go out there and beat him, how do you have Rob Font as the underdog here in this fight? I know Rob Font is always going to outdog these guys on volume. It's just is the takedown defense going to be there, and is the durability going to be there? And Gene Matsumoto really hasn't shown me the ability to go out there and really hurt guys like a Cheeto Vera has in his past, like a Jose Aldo had. So Gene Matsumoto, I know he's 16-0, but it's still one of those. It's Brad Katona. It's Dan Argueta. It's not Rob Font, who's been fighting the top of the division for a long time. So I'm on Rob Font. I think he's going to keep himself in a super close fight. You told me it could be where the damage plays a huge factor. And you're right. Go ahead and talk about it. That could be the way I lose it. But I still think when you look at the stats, we're going to see Rob Font outstrike Matsumoto by 35 strikes or something on the number. So I like Rob Font at plus money to keep me in this fight. Cash me another dog ticket.
Yeah, I'm going off the top of the head here, so that was like exactly where I was going to. Is he's just the way he's built, Matsumoto. He's built like a bantamweight Volkanovski, and only being 25 years old, he wears damage pretty well. He kind of walks through shots at this point in his career, and I don't think it's the time where he's going to necessarily pay for his lack of defense. You mentioned the odds kind of being weird. How would you line this with Kyler Phillips? One thing I kind of thought was weird was Rob Font was a minus 190 against Dominic Cruz. And I think if Dominic Cruz and Matsumoto were matched up, that'd probably be, evens or, something like that. So Rob Font being an underdog to Matsumoto, who's, like you said, kind of going not life and death, but a challenging fight against Katona. He's busted up in the face and everything. It's tough to get behind him, even though he does have that perfect record. So, yeah, man, I'm with you. Like for the price tag, Rob Font with the experience and everything else, it's not a bad pick. I do think that he's kind of on the tail end of his career, but the level of competition is so much different than what Gene Matsumoto has to offer right now at 25 years old that I think you do kind of have to take the flyer on the vet here in Rob Font. So I don't hate that. Probably be on it as well. I really want to wait until weigh-ins. I wish these lines would quit moving because I love to see them before I play anything. And yeah, I'm with you. I think Rob Font is probably the side pre-fight. Yeah. Moving on to the co-main event, Brendan Allen taking on Anthony Hernandez. This was a weird one, man. Like this is one where off the rip, I wanted to bet Brendan Allen because I think that people underestimate his ground game and they overestimate Anthony Hernandez's. Anthony was able to submit Rodolfo Vieira, and I think that put a ton of stock on his grappling, but I don't think it should be. Rodolfo Vieira has some holes in his game, man. Like we've seen that time and time again, and I don't think that it should be held in that high of regard. Anthony Hernandez, he's tough. Like at the end of the day, he's really tough. He can push a pace, and a lot of people can't keep up with that pace. Brendan Allen, somebody who I've seen in 5-round fights. I've seen him go life and death with people in grappling situations, and I honestly think that he might have a little bit of upside in the striking, not as defense, but in the pure technical striking. I think he's probably a little bit better than Anthony Hernandez. And sitting at this price tag, knowing that he's a serviceable fighter, I think that he is probably the side. I love Anthony Hernandez. I really do, but I don't think that it's warranted against another solid fighter in Brendan Allen, who's really only showed chin problems. And so, like, I'm not really worried about Anthony Hernandez knocking him out. So I'm not exactly throwing that into how I figure out this fight in my head. Brendan Allen at plus 260 might look like an absolute gift because that dude is good and he is young. So give me Brendan Allen.
Dude, one, super high level fight for the odds to be like this. 2, rematches never go the same. 3, you watch that first fight, Brendan Allen wins round 1. So if it's a 3-round fight, it's 1-1 going into the 3rd round. Brendan Allen has made massive improvements. He's got the striking advantage. I was really hoping you'd come on here and be a proponent in trying to bet Brendan Allen as well, because I'm coming off betting Fluffy pretty big to end the year when we were in New Orleans. I bet Fluffy's main event, got in on him early, bet him big against Michel Pereira, expected him to break him in that kind of style. This isn't 5 rounds, man. He's only got 3 rounds to do it. And Brendan Allen's a guy who's gone out there and taken rounds off of a Mavov, who's looking stellar right now, And so, yeah, man, at plus 260, it's going to be hard for me not to get a Brendan Allen play in before fight time on Saturday. So super excited to hear you potentially being on the same side. Moving to the main event, Henry Cejudo, Song Yadong. Go ahead.
I just saw Brendan Allen went blonde for the fight too, which has been successful for a lot of fighters, man. So we'll see. Blonde
Brendan, I like it. Cejudo and Song Yadong. I've kind of flipped back and forth all week here because, one hand I'm like, Song is 10 years old or 10 years younger, probably way more physical, way better striker. But, dude, Henry's one of these guys who's just mentally I know we kind of give him some shit for, the gold medal being at the weight class and how many people he's really wrestling against. But he's, mentally built different, man. There's not many guys going out here and winning gold medals, winning 2 world championships. Mentally, I think the guy's different. I think his work ethic's on another level, despite seeing the shit on some of the podcasts of him smoking and things last week. He looks in good shape. And I do think the way I've seen Song Yadong taken down in the past, I think Henry, the way I see him get inside, get on the hips on Aljo, land those trips, like I do think Henry's going to land some takedowns in this fight. And I just kind of feel like this line is just going to go all over the place throughout 5 rounds. It's going to be Song Yadong winning the striking exchanges, and Henry puts him on his back for 3.5 minutes, and the line's just going crazy. So I don't know, man. I kind of think Henry has no finishing upside here, and so he's got to have north of probably 12 to 13 minutes of control time, and I don't know if he does that. And so I've kind of wanted, like Song earlier in the week, like Henry Cejudo during tape study, going back to I don't know if Henry has much a way of winning outside of a decision. And so I think I'm going to completely pass on the fight. I don't have a great read. Man, I'll just take my boy Henry Cejudo. I think he's going to at least cover the price tag. So give me Henry. Decision plus 370 is a little tempting.
So I think I end up on the Song side, unfortunately. One of the biggest factors being that he's 38 years old, at the lower weight classes. It's just like, that even if it's not this fight, okay, is it the next fight? Is it the fight after that? It's coming for sure.
It's its second sport. It's like I feel like it's like DC, the whole wrestling career.
He's got a lot of wear and tear.
Right. When the time has come for it to be the end, it's the end usually, So I'm with you.
100%. And truth be told, on top of all that, he's retired and come back. So where is his motivation for fight? Is it the same as it was when he was an Olympian, or is it, hey, I need money? Retirement wasn't as kind to me as I thought it was. So now he's coming in here against Song Yadong, who, look, if it was the Song Yadong in 2021 who fought Kyler Phillips and lost a decision, I would certainly be looking to bet Henry Cejudo here. But we just watched Song Yadong whoop up on Ricky Simone for 5 rounds before finishing him, and I think that's at least similar enough fight style to what Henry Cejudo is going to try and bring in here to give me what I need. Song Yadong is somebody who, like Weili Zhang and Tatiana Suarez, he is so physically fit that his pure athleticism will get him out of a lot of situations, which is why I don't believe that Henry Cejudo is going to be able to have the 12, 13 minutes of control time that he would need to get this win. And just at different points in their career, we've seen Henry only lose to the best of the best. But truth be told, man, since Song Yadong got into the UFC, I thought that he was going to be, a future champ, contender. And he's 27 years old now. He's right in the prime of his career. I do think that even if Henry has early success, we've kind of seen him slow down, being up a weight class. Song Yadong is somebody who is maxing out the 135-pound weight class, And when I saw them in the face-offs earlier today, it was outside. They were both in tennis shoes. Henry was wearing his puffers, dude. They had a good inch and a half on it, and he was looking up at Song Yadong the whole face-off. I really do think size is going to play a pretty big factor whenever the smaller guy is the one who needs to control the bigger guy on top. So even if the technique isn't quite there for Song Yadong, I think that his youth and athleticism is going to pull through for him, and I do like him as a favorite here. Minus 250 is a little ridiculous, but if he was minus 150, I'd be playing him. So that's just kind of how I'm seeing this fight. I like Song Yadong.
Nice. It's all 12 fights we've been through. Seattle had a super, super good fight card, man. I was hyping it up. They've lost a whole bunch of fights, but I'm glad
you jinxed the hell out of that.
I jinxed the absolute hell out of that, man. But still an awesome fight card. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Make sure to like and subscribe. Keep an eye out on Twitter for the bets. And as always, we'll see you next week.
Peace.